So you really thought that this Gemini season was gonna be light, was gonna be superficial, was gonna be playful and spontaneous, and we're gonna party, gonna be curious, we're gonna be able to, crack jokes and, just be lighthearted. But we better think again, because there's some heavy hitting aspects and alignments that are going to be spicing things up and shaking things up, and we've already been experiencing them. We're talking about Uranus, we're talking about the trends with Pluto, and so there's some shockers, there's some awakening that's going to be happening, there's some challenges, ups and downs, and ultimately there's going to be transformation. This Gemini season is about accumulating knowledge and being able to apply it, which is wisdom. Okay, so turning your knowledge, which is powerful, into wisdom, which is actually knowing what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And that's not particularly easy every single time. Okay, we know that the Gemini. Oh, before we go any further, did I do the intro? Greetings, salutations, and good now. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Kevis Major, doing it major. And I hope I didn't do the intro twice. Anyway, this Gemini season, talking about Gemini duality, it's about mutable here, being mutable, being changeable, being adaptable, versatile, flexible when it comes to, how you process all of the information from the experiences that you're having, how you're able to navigate, differently next time. Okay, and how you could also share this information with others to contribute, to the collective conscious, right? However, there's going to be some, tricky alignments that, are going to make this Gemini season quite unique. I don't want to say difficult, but Janua style, we have some real, hard hitting placements and alignments. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is the sign of the mind. Okay, so we know the mind is a muscle. You could build your mind, you could nurture your mind, you could, make it stronger, you could make it have more endurance, but you also could destroy your mind. Your mind could also be weak and feeble and not really durable. Okay, and not really flexible, and so it's hard for you to change your mind. And this affects everyone differently because everyone has a different native or natural placement when it comes to their Mercury sign. However, we are all going to be affected during this Gemini season. No ifs, buts, or maybes about that. Okay, this Gemini season is not just about being social and being conversational, but it's about, mental transformation and emotional grounding, being able to process all of this information, take it in, and apply it, right? And be able to be grounded at the same time, because it's a lot of information that we have in today's world. All right, so let's start with what we have going on today. Today is the 24th of May 2026, and we have the first quarter moon in Virgo, which is a great moon. This weekend is going to be a bit calm. We do have the sun conjuncting Uranus, so anything could pop off at any time. But for the most part, we are reacting and responding to how we could, be a bit more organized, a bit more structured, a bit more stable, how we could give the same amount of effort or less to the world when it comes to our services, our jobs, our daily ins and outs, and get the same results or relatively the same results. This moon in Virgo energy is how can we look at the minute details, the intricacies of what we do? How could we make it more efficient? How could we work smarter and not harder? And this is a great, first quarter moon, especially for those of us who've been planting those seeds in the new moon that we had in Taurus. and we're expecting results in the full moon in Sagittarius in this Gemini season, which we're going to talk about. And that's why this Gemini season is quite particular, because we have the full moon in Sagittarius, you know, stemming from what happened in Taurus, and then we're going to be having the new moon in Gemini to springboard us into the summer. So you see how that works. You see how the astrology is giving us a blueprint of what to do as we, you know, transition through the year. Okay, but like we said, a lot of aspects going to be happening, and so we're going to try to touch on them as we go along. So the 24th, we got this moon in Libra. We also have the conjunction with Sun and Uranus. We already talked about that in another video, so you could go and check out that video. However, Uranus, you know, just bringing in weird, bringing in different, unorthodox, innovative, rebellious. It's just different ideas from a different realm, from a different dimension. And when you play it out here, you need to make it make sense. So Uranus is that make it make sense energy, some sort of way out idea that you need to convince people that this makes sense. This is the right thing to do. And so when you play out that energy too much, things could look shocking. Things could look, you know, shock jock type of energy. Could be explosive, could be radical, could be rebellious, innovative. Again, you need to make it make sense, and then people are gonna catch on. Think about like the first time credit cards, or the first time internet, or those novel things, you know, they had to make it make sense, and then it made sense, and it's like, wow, you know. And it probably isn't anything real new or novel, but it's just an upgrade of some old technology that probably was discarded. Or again, it could just be, you know, bringing in some different personal insights that you could apply that makes things, you know, weird or different, but then you make it make sense type of energy. And so that's happening right now. We're going to be having the moon then sliding into Libra, bringing in a bit more harmony and balance. This seems like it's going to be a pretty calm weekend, even though life is still life, and I ain't going to tell no lie, things are just brewing. However, moon in Libra, we are reacting and responding to balance, harmony, being diplomatic. And so we don't really want to fight, we just want to keep the peace. And so Sun is in Gemini, we could be a bit more social, we could be mutable and adaptable to other people's point of views and other people's ideas, and be able to, you know, compromise in a certain way. And so this weekend seems a pretty chill. Here on the island, it's with Monday, it's gonna be on Monday, so we have a little holiday. And so this weekend seems like, you know, we're going to be getting a break before we go into the heavy hitting aspects, which are gonna be starting from the 26th. Now the rest of May off the top is just going to be a bit more intense, starting with this trine that we're having with Sun in Gemini, trining with Pluto in Aquarius. Now I like to say Pluto in Aquarius is that planet of doom, gloom, death, and destruction. However, there's a promise there's a promise of rebirth and regeneration. And so within that whole synopsis, there's power, there's control, and there's transformation. Things are going to be broken down or tested to see if the foundations or the roots were strong. And so this trine gives us that ability to go to the deep depths of a person, place, thing, circumstance, or situation, and test the foundation and test the roots, or your roots and your foundations may be tested. And so certain things are going to be revealed, secrets behind the trade, or, you know, the hidden truths behind your systems or whatever. And so this is a powerful time for just getting insights and bringing, you know, certain informations to the surface. Good time for planning, good time for investigating. However, you don't want to be too obsessive or controlling, or trying to use, you know, your affiliations or networks or groups, or what you know or what you think you could do to manipulate a person or try to force a result, you know. We kind of try to do this in our own way. All right, we want to manifest our intended results, but when it comes to direct manipulating a person, place, or a thing, just being overly obsessed with it, that's a no-no. So this is a beautiful aspect to, again, test the foundation, see what needs to be chipped away when it comes to a person, place, thing, circumstance, or situation, business, love life, career, or just mundane life. Chip that away, build it back stronger. Sun in Gemini, mutable, flexible, adaptable. So this could be a beautiful placement if you're on the right side of the energies. However, on the same day, May 26th, we have Mars squaring Pluto. And so how you pursue, how you go about things, there may be a bit of a square as Mars is in Cancer, so it asks us to slow down, be a bit more strategic, be a bit more patient, right? And so this may cause us to bottle up, energy, bottle up anger, bottle up frustration, bottle up our desires, and maybe even run away from certain conflicts. And so because there's a square, there's conflict with Pluto that wants to go to the deep depths of a situation and gain power and control, this day could be quite ticklish or tricky, right? Ticklish or tricky. We got to know how to balance these energies. Again, Sun is trining Pluto, so how we act, we have the potential to go to the deep depths of, situation, but just that energy to pursue and to go forward, we still need to be a bit strategic, right? We still need to be strategic and not forceful. So this alignment, again, Mars in Taurus wants to build, but Pluto wants to transform. And so there's a bit of a push and pull where you're building, but you're still breaking things down. So you could have the ultimate construction or the ultimate building, right? Whether you're building a mind, building your body, building business, love life, situation, just your mundane life. Hold on. Okay, I know there was a big truck coming down the road, so I just paused the video. I know that I don't have a microphone as well, so the audio in these videos aren't the best. However, we still push through. Okay, so Mars in Taurus is going to be squaring Pluto in Aquarius. Two fixated signs going up against each other, tensions between self-worth, your personal security, and also just change, collective change, comfort, and being able to just evolve, right? Have power and control in your situation. All right, so we need to use our energies here again strategically. We need to be disciplined. We need to have a certain level of emotional intelligence, and we need to redirect, any of these energies, any of the tension, and not just keep it wasted or stagnated. May 28th, Venus is going to square Saturn again with the squares, again with these difficult aspects. We know that Venus is in Cancer, and so when Venus is in Cancer, there's a heavy emphasis on really holding on to things that make us comfortable, the people, places, and circumstances that we could nurture or pour into, or we feel that it's pouring into us and making us emotionally safe or protected or nourished in some way, shape, or form. And as Saturn is going to be squaring, Saturn in Aries is about independence and being bold and being disciplined and your identity, right? And how you could take away certain things and have certain boundaries and limits, but still be able to have a certain identity and be able to perform therein. And so this is a tricky one when Venus wants closeness, okay? Saturn in Aries is asking for boldness and self-respect and boundaries, and so maybe clearing things or pushing people away if they don't, abide by a certain, code, or they don't respect who you are, right? When Venus in Saturn, when Venus in Cancer is about care and nurturing, Saturn in Aries is saying, yeah, you could care for me, but does that mean I need to abandon myself? Does that mean I need to not be disciplined? Like, if you think about when you care for something, or you overly care for something, or you be overprotective of, let's say, a child, you make that child weak. You make that child disabled because they're not getting the necessary experiences that they need to get knowledge and be able to apply for them to become wise. And so this is a good aspect, Venus being in Cancer, but if it's overly done, we become weak, right? We become overly dependent. And so this square is kind of shaking things up and asking us to be you know, disciplined, still committed to ourselves, still have some sort of self-respect, have boundaries, be courageous to stand up for what we believe in and for who we are as a person, how we want to express ourselves in this realm. And so how can love be responsible? How can love have boundaries? How can you love things? How you could tap into, you know, your pleasures and indulge into things without losing yourself, right? Or without, you know, becoming undisciplined or getting off of your square, right? Can you not commit confuse emotionally attachments or just pleasures with long-term things that are really good for you or beneficial for you? All right, so the real love is not really being overprotective or over giving or, you know, over nurturing, but it's to, you know, maturity, consistency, respect, having boundaries both ways, and, you know, all of those boundaries being able to be respected and protected. Okay, on the 31st, we're gonna have the full moon in Sagittarius. Full moon in Sagittarius, you know what I'm saying? And this is where we should really be starting to see the proof in the pudding. Okay, the full moon is where we start, or, you know, we are expecting to start receiving or seeing some results from the new moon or the new moons that we've been planting, right? Sometimes it's not just about one lunation cycle. Okay, so you got in, you think you got in on the new moon in Taurus, so you should be getting something on the full moon in Gemini. Sometimes that's not how it works. You got to be putting in moons and moons and moons. However, you know, if you were putting in the necessary good work, then you should be able to be seeing some sort of signs showing. Okay, so the full moon again is the climax of the lunation cycle, and so this is where, you know, we kind of relax, stop watering the seeds too much, and we start going in a more protective mode as we are about to start harvesting, or we want to continue to, you know, see these goals or seeds come to fruition. So this is almost like the peak of the Gemini season. Sun is going to be right in Gemini, and the moon is going to be in Sagittarius, which is the opposition. And so sun in Gemini. Gemini is about the information. Sagittarius is really about, you know, the wisdom, the application of the knowledge. So Sagittarius is searching for meaning and reasoning behind why you do what you do, right? All of the experiences and social interactions. What was the meaning and reasoning? What was the sum total of all of this, and how could we use it? Right? Gemini is looking for the small little details and the little experiences to accumulate this knowledge so you could apply it. But then Gemini is looking at the bigger picture. How could we use this for higher heights, right? And broader horizons. So the full moon is going to be, you know, a major, major part of, you know, this Gemini season, where some way, somehow, we're going to be reflecting, right, and sitting back and relaxing as the moon is full, and really be contemplating, are we seeing the results from the seeds that we've been planted? Were the seeds planted on good foundation, good beliefs, good ideologies, good system, good education, you know, a good religion, a good philosophy, you know, rooted in, you know, the positive parts of your culture? Are you for or against the law, the natural law, or the man-made law? And so the full moon is going to be really a time where you're going to be seeing the results, right, based on, you know, your seeds being planted on a good foundation, good Sagittarius foundation. When you start to try to get the collective sum of all of your experience, or is it planted on some shaky ground? Shaky ground, is what I'm saying. So what do you believe in, and can you stand on what you believe in? And as you build on what you believe in, is it working? You know what I'm saying? Is it working? Working. In this world, we know a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we know, but all of this information could lead to a lack of direction. And so again, we could know a lot of things, we could have a lot of opinions, but where's the truth, or are we avoiding the truth? And so there's a lot of talking, but do you live based on your philosophy? Yeah. So during the full moon, positive side, excellent for, just being able to know that what you're doing is based on your philosophy. You could stand on it and it could stand the test of time. You're proven right. And so you're able to be seen as a teacher or a prophet, or you just look like you're on the right side of the energy when it comes to what you're doing, right? If you're on the wrong side of the energy, then you may be tested, right? You may be coming off preachy or dogmatic, look like you're stuck in old dated beliefs, maybe look like you're risky or reckless, going down the wrong roads. And ultimately, the seeds that you've been planted or not planted on the right side. And so you can't really stand on your belief. You can't really stand on your philosophy. You can't really back up what you're saying during this Gemini season. And ultimately, you look like a fool at the end of the month. You can't pay your rent or something. You know what I'm saying? All right. So that's the weekly. Well, almost the weekly. I think the week continues down until what day? Let's look down here, the calculator. Until the 30th. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the week, where we have the full moon in Sagittarius. All right, so let's continue with our monthly look ahead. This is going to be the June section. We're going to go from June 1st until June 21st. We don't have a lot of aspects, major ones that is, because there's a lot of minor aspects. We don't even want to get there. However, we do have some real potent ones. On the 1st of June, we thought we were going to be having a break. You thought you were going to have a break after the full moon in Sagittarius? Because Mercury is going to be sliding into Cancer, right? Moving out of its home sign, moving into Cancer. So off the bat, that's a major shift, and we already know that Mercury is not going to enjoy being here. Just imagine Mercury is at his home, where he could be bouncing off the walls, you could read all the books, you could study all you want, you could experiment, you could bring people over, you could have a party there, you could chat about your experiences, you doing all of that cool stuff. And then you have to go to grandma's house, where grandma ain't care about none of those stories that you got to tell her from what just happened at your house. She ain't really care about none of those experiences, nothing that you was learning, none of that type of stuff, until you come in, you take your shoes off, you slow down, take your shoes off, you wash your hands, you sit at the table, grandma go put his kettle on, boil up some tea, you know what I'm saying, or some hot chocolate or something. She comes over, she hands you, you cool the tea, take a few sips, she gets you in a nice calm, regulated nervous system type of way, and then you could go ahead and talk, or she probably still ain't care about what you're talking about, because you're here to get some of grandma's wisdom. And so as Mercury slides into Cancer, Mercury doesn't like to be here. And I'm saying this is where Mercury really, really needs to slow down and talk more about emotions and express care, right? And so the mind moves to the water sign, where the mind has to be stimulating, the Cancer sign, or being influenced by the Cancer sign, which talks about emotional safety or stability, the things that make you feel safe, right? Things that make you feel secure, the things that, again, you could pour into, or you feel like is pouring into you in some way, shape, or form. So your communication or your communication style is gonna be different, right? It's gonna be different. This is where you could tap into, more of a emotional sentiment, right? How do you feel about the things that right? How can you connect to your ideas or your knowledge on a deeper basis? People take words more personally during this time, and communication could be a bit more indirect, right? Memories and different experience can influence current conversations, and so all things that happened in the past are going to be relevant in what we're doing right now. So you need to be expressing yourself with care, right? Your mind should be moving around and processing everything carefully with concern, and being focused on things that are really nourishing, right? It's not just about, okay, Mercury was in Gemini, we could be here, there, and everywhere. No, Grandma wants you to think about the things that are really pertinent to the heart, you know, your family, your health, um, your personal safety in this world, your security, you actually being confident with who you are, you know? And so Mercury in Cancer is that, you know, grandma lecturing you type of energy. All right, we're gonna go forward into June 9th. So nothing major happening from June 1st until June 9th. Well, something happening major in my family. We're gonna be burying the dead. So RIP to O'Neill. I think the funeral is June 8th. Yeah, so looking forward to it, but not really looking forward to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a funeral, so who's looking forward to a funeral? But it's something on the calendar, so we look forward to it. All right, on the 9th of June, we have Venus conjuncting Jupiter in Cancer, and this is a sticky placement. Again, we know that Venus in Cancer is about is like a sweet aspect, because a bittersweet one, let's put it that way, because Venus is about your love, your beauty, pleasure, money, being able to attract things, right? Having harmony in your life, attracting beautiful people, places, things, circumstances, and situations. And then Jupiter is growth and abundance. And so you're expanding, or you're growing, or, you know, having prosperity when it comes to that Venus energy, right? And then it's all happening in Cancer, which is the home sign, the safety sign, emotional wise, nourishment, and the things and people, places, things that make you feel protected, or that sense of belonging. And so this is a beautiful aspect. You could see people expanding the home, expanding, you know, the things that make them feel good, more money, more women, or more men if you're a woman, maybe having a child, more money, these type of things, right? So this is a real beautiful aspect when it comes to just abundance and being able to magnetize or attract, you know, the people, places, things that you really desire. Okay, good for bonding with the family, good for home beautification, good for cooking, hosting. I'm going to be doing all of that stuff because that's after O'Neill's funeral, and so you could see it's a time to kind of nourish that safety space. However, on the shadow side, we could overindulge, right? And so we could hold on too closely to people, places, things, circumstances, and situations that make us feel safe, and we could expand or expound on that. And so, yeah, you could be eating too much, tapping too much into pleasures, too much into indulgences. It could look like escapism. It could look like you moving from, you know, having 2 blunts a day to having 10 blunts a day just because you feel like it. And so this is a tricky placement where we could expand on, you know, the people, places, things that make us feel protected and nourished and cared for, or we could expand the things that we are too comfortable with doing, those people, places, things, habits that we are too comfortable in. Okay, then we move forward to June 13th, so nothing major from the 9th until the 13th, where Venus slides out of Cancer into Leo. Venus, this placement is a tricky one, because now love or your attraction moves from a private place into a public place, into fire, into the public arena. And so Venus in Cancer wants safety, protection, nourishment. But no, Venus in Leo wants attention, wants celebration, wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be appreciated, wants visible affection. And so this is where this could be great if you're in a relationship, or for flirting, or for attracting, because Leo is the sign of entertainment, the sign of, you know, performance, the sign of creativity. And it's not necessarily serious, it could be heartfelt, but it could also be superficial, it could be creative, and so you express your desires, your wants, in a creative way, or you could just be expressing, certain desires, or just being attractive, or attracting for attracting sake, and not it necessarily being pertaining to your goals or your ambitions. You know what I'm saying? So let's say you just go and you're flexing and people looking at you and getting all of this attention, but you ain't really doing nothing with it. It's for no reason other than for you to just have it. Like, it doesn't even make you feel any type of way. Anyway, so Venus in Leo type of energy again wants love, wants to go out and attract it. You're gonna be expressing that, and so it could be deep. It could be quite deep, all the way down where you go out and you express love all the way to you create a family or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta be careful, because that's that type of placement. So on the shadow side, too much attention seeking, being too dramatic, being too dependent on validation, and you could be using sex as validation, and so you play out that type of energy all the way till you go create a kid with the wrong person, or you go contract a STD just before we go into the summer. I'm sorry, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be doing that. I'm sorry. Okay, on June 14th, we're going to be having the new moon in Gemini, and so this begins a new cycle. Moon equals mood, equals emotion, feeling, how we react and respond to the world that we're currently living in. The world is going to be Gemini, mutable year, so how we could be changeable, how we could be flexible and adaptable to all of the new information that we're going to be gathering. And so I don't know, man, but there's a lot of heavy traffic on the road, so sometimes I need to pause the video. There's a big Mack truck moving. Anyway, so the new moon in Gemini, we're creating this new mood. What are the new conversations? What are the new skills? What are the new ideas we need to be developing? How could we tell a new story, or tell the same story from a different angle, a different perspective? What are the mental patterns and habits that we need to change? And what message we need to be sharing as we springboard into the summer. We're still in the spring, which is the growth season, right? And so Gemini, I like to look at it as a modification season, where you could have modifications or upgrades to the different seeds that we've been planted from the top of the astrological year, starting with Aries, a new identity, new vision, Taurus, how to stabilize it, and then Gemini, how could we move differently, how could we have a different idea, a different perspective, or what is the sum of all of the information that we've been learning to add to what we've already been doing. Okay, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Do I have to go into some analogies? Let me know if we gotta go into some analogies. Okay, so the new moon, again, making those new intentions about the modifications. Okay, mutable year, being mutable, changeable, adaptable, having a different perspective. And so knowing that you need to have a different perspective, you got to be able to look at your way and other people's way of processing information, and then you can make certain modifications. You're going to be going through new moon rituals and stuff like that as we approach closer, but just know that where we've been a bit scattered during the Gemini energy, this is where we kind of honed in and picked the ideas that we want to carry on into the summer. Okay, all right, June 19th, this is gonna be a big day as Chiron starts transitioning into Taurus. This is gonna be a huge one. We have to do a whole video about this, because Chiron don't play. Chiron, the wounded healer, the teacher, shows you where pain could become wisdom. How could you transform transform your insecurities, right? Your things that you're embarrassed or ashamed about into a superpower. Okay, turning your pain into gain. And so we had a whole long season of Chiron being in Aries, and now it's shifting into Taurus. So while it was in Aries, a lot of wounds about your identity, your independence, you being able to be who you are and stand up for yourself and just have a certain right to exist in a space, right? The Chiron in Aries energy was hard, where you were making a lot of personal mistakes when it comes to your personal issues, your personal ins and outs, your personal ups and downs, and you being able to just stand on your character. When Chiron moves into Taurus, now there's going to be a healing cycle about, your body, your voice, money, survival, self-worth. And so you being secure in yourself without the material things, or with or without the material things. Okay? It's going to be a deep transit, asking you, do you feel safe in your body? Do you feel worthy? Certain fears about survival, certain things about, your money, your resources, and just your overall confidence level with or without these material things that make you feel stable, that give you the illusion of stability. Okay? Finances might go down, I'm saying your health might go down, I'm saying things might go down, I'm saying just to test you, to see. Okay? So different experiences to bring healing in the Taurus energy. So that's something to look out for. And then on June 21st, Sun is going to enter Cancer. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And that's gonna be the summertime. Ha ha. Alright, so we're gonna do a whole different video about that, but just to conclude, just to wrap up what this Gemini season is gonna be all about. Again, mental awakening. We have to be mutable, changeable, adaptable to our way and other people's ways of having experiences, processing those experiences, and being able to, apply that information. However, the aspects are going to be asking us for a high level of emotional recalibration. We got Pluto and Uranus, right? That is going to be bringing in unorthodox ideas, higher ideals, but Pluto wants to go to the deep-rooted foundations and shake things up. Mars is going to square Pluto, which is pressure that reminds us that change is not going to be comfortable. Venus square Saturn is asking us to be emotionally mature. Full moon in Sagittarius showing us where our actions, if they were rooted in truth, if they were rooted in good foundation, good philosophy, good ideas, in our truth. Mercury is going to be in Cancer, where the mind has to be predicated on the heart space, what makes us feel comfortable. Then Venus slides into Leo. The heart wants to shine. We want to attract true, being more charismatic, entertaining, and showing our ASS. We're just showing ourselves, showing more about our pleasureful self. New moon in Gemini, we're planting new seeds when it comes to, again, knowledge and wisdom. And then Chiron move into Taurus, January star. Yeah, Venus in Cancer to tie up the whole season. So this one looks action-packed, I ain't gonna tell no lie. But we're gonna chop it up more in later videos. I hope you guys find this one helpful, useful, or a little entertainment. A little entertaining. Drop a like on this video in the comments down below. Let me know which part of this video was the most helpful and useful to you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm sorry. Major farewell until we meet and greet again. And we're gonna turn up the music now.